Welcome to Cinesessed for all film obsessors. Whether you're a diehard cinephile or you simply like to watch movies for fun, this is the show for you. In layman's terms, the rules to this game are very simple. I sit down and chat cinema with some of the most knowledgeable people in the field, as well as some people who just enjoy movies in general. Hopefully, while you, the viewers, learn something new along the way. We have a packed half hour for you guys today, including the latest in-film reviews from Billy Rake and Jeremy Lightfinger, as well as some behind-the-scenes facts from our specialist, Ben Lombardo. But to start off the show today, I have a special guest. He's a staff member for the Radio, Television, and Film Department at Rowan University, as well as a film connoisseur, Sean O'Leary. Sean, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to start out with a pretty simple question. What have you done so far over your career for the viewers at home?
It's a simple question, huh? I've worked here at Rowan University for the past 18 years in the RTF department, specifically in the film component of that. Prior to that, I worked for some time in independent film production, freelance. I've done graphic arts, graphic design, that kind of thing. In my own personal sort of endeavors, I used to publish a small press fiction magazine with some friends and partners. And
do you still publish that magazine, or is that?
No, we actually had it going twice. We started it back in the 90s. It got a lot of good sort of notices and some success. We folded just because life got involved and got in the way.
Yeah.
But then we revived it in 2011, went for a couple of years, and then, well, life got in the way again. It becomes too big a thing to take on in your spare time. Something that was really rewarding and a lot of fun. It's crawled back into its tomb for some time now, but who knows? Maybe it'll emerge once again in the future.
Yeah. So obviously you do things other than just teaching at Rowan. Do you have anything you're working on now, or?
I do sort of like to I have interests. I have varied interests, let's say. I do some artwork. I do some writing. I'm really involved in, interested in tabletop games. I have some ideas in that area. Yeah. So I guess I have my fingers in a lot of different pots there.
Like brand new tabletop games?
Yes.
Oh, that's any ideas you can share, or stuff that you don't want people to steal the ideas?
No, I don't expect anybody to steal anything, but it's just things that are working around in my head and things I'm toying with. There isn't anything to really reveal.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are you most proud of so far during your career?
Oh, wow. I'm pleased that I'm able to engage in whatever kind of creative activities I can. I'm always pleased when I'm finished with them, whether it's a film project or a writing project or an art project or anything like that. But after they're done, I'm always able to see the flaws in them or things I want to do better. So I guess I'm always wanting to push myself to do something better or on to the next thing, perhaps.
Yeah.
I'm pleased with everything I've done, I guess, so far, but I'm always looking to do something else and something better.
Well, I feel like noticing your flaws is the most important thing when it comes to working on projects like this.
I think
because if you don't point out your flaws to yourself, then you don't have that want to go and fix them in future projects.
Yeah. It's always something that it helps you spur yourself to do something better next time, I think.
Yeah. Well, getting more into movies in general now, what would you say, if you remember, was the first movie you saw in movie theaters?
I do. I have vague memories of it. And I wasn't sure if this was the first movie I ever saw, but my mother assures me that it is. And she was there, so she would know. But it was actually Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown.
Oh, okay.
It's when they used to show Charlie Brown movies in the movie theater. Charlie and his friends had to go on a rafting race. Mm-hmm. That's about all I remember of it. But I was so young that my mother had to take me and I had to sit on her lap the whole time.
Yeah.
So I was pretty young for that. After that, I remember my dad taking me to see a movie that was sort of a half documentary, half sort of narrative version of Bigfoot stories.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought was really cool. This is back in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, saying that you say you don't remember them as much, is this something you haven't seen since you watched them in the theaters?
I may have seen Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown at some point in my childhood on TV, but no. You know what? Actually, the Bigfoot movie, I did see it again recently. Do you know what riff tracks are?
I don't.
All right, it's a couple of the guys from the old Mystery Science Theater 3000 show. Years ago, when after that show ended, they formed their own company, and they basically, they make fun of terrible movies, but without being in front of the screen like they did on MST. And they just released them. So every once in a while, I'll buy one on Amazon and watch it. And I had a Bigfoot movie. I put it on. It was the movie I saw when I was a kid with my dad.
Oh, that's great.
It's still terrible.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's great that you saw it then and remembered it. Yep. But if it is terrible, then I guess it's not as great
really
as I said it was.
Yeah.
Was there a specific moment you remember? Maybe it was one of those movies where you knew that this was the field you wanted to work in and the field you wanted to teach?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. When I was a kid, I loved movies. I love all kinds of storytelling, but movies really had an impact on me when I was a kid. But I remember, I actually don't remember this, but I guess later on in life, looking back on it, when I was younger, as a kid, I didn't really think about the fact that people made movies when you're really young.
And I don't think a lot of people do when they're older either. They just go see them as entertainment.
And I thought, movies are movies, and I just like the stories. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think it was probably not until when as a teenager, I saw A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
And it was just looked so different. It was so stylish, or so stylized, I should say, that I really sort of took notice and realized that, there's somebody working creatively behind this to make everything look the way it specifically does. And it was then, that I found out more about Stanley Kubrick and got into his films. And I guess at that point, I really started to pay more attention to the craft behind movies.
Yeah. Well, going into last question for me, the first movie I saw in theaters was Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, the Sam Raimi one.
Oh my goodness!
I honestly don't remember any of it. well, any of the theater. I watch it all the time now because I feel like I love superhero movies because of that.
Yep.
And it's because of that love for superhero movies that I think the first movie I saw where I knew I was really interested in all the behind the scenes and how things were made was Marvel's Ant-Man from a couple years ago. I saw that 3 times in theaters because I felt the visual effects were just outstanding, and I just wanted to know how they actually were able to accomplish that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just now I'm here as a student trying to learn these things. So.
And it was good. I think it was one of the underrated Marvel movies. It was a much smaller story, but it was good. It was like a heist film.
I know a lot of people in like film connoisseurs aren't always into the superhero movies as much. But I mean, I think there's some good stuff there, technical-wise.
There's room for everything.
Yeah. Well, the general public doesn't always know what goes on behind the scenes, including Ant-Man, which is why I was interested in it. Sure. Is there something you wish people looked more into these movies, or wish they knew?
Not really. Honestly, I don't think it's the audience's job to just enjoy the movie, right? And to me, it's the filmmaker's job to make the story so engaging that the craft of it sort of melts away and the audience just becomes engrossed in the story. You can notice certain interesting things, or of course today we live in the world of, they can do all kinds of amazing, wondrous things on film, but so people take more notice of these special effects. But really, it's all about, to me, just enjoying the story. And if people forget about the craft or the tinkering behind the scenes that makes the movie and just they're engrossed in the story and the characters, then I think that film's a success.
Well, last question for you. Do you find that even as a teacher now, that you're still learning stuff about your field all the time?
Yeah, of course. I think if you feel like you've learned everything you've had, that you had to learn throughout your life, that you're sort of finished learning, that's a sad state to be in. There's always something new to learn. Whether it's in a field or something that you've been involved in your whole life, or there's always new things to learn and new things to pick up. The world is full of new and interesting ideas and things, and there's so much out there to learn. And that's part of the joy of living, I think.
Yeah, that's great. I completely agree with you. And in this field specifically, it's certainly something where you have to always learn, or else you're not going to take the next step.
The tools are always changing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sean. I'd like to thank Sean O'Leary once again for joining us today. Coming up after the break, Billy and Jeremy discuss one of the biggest franchises of all time, so don't go anywhere.
Greek life organizations are social groups of fraternities and sororities that come together on college campuses and universities.
I'm Jason Joseph, and I'm an AE Pi. My name's Alyssa Colangelo, and I'm in Sigma Delta Tau.
Hello, I'm Kevin Pacheco, and I'm in TEP.
Being a part of Greek life is like a home away from home. If you are interested in joining Greek life today, contact the Student Center for more information. Good luck, future brothers and sisters.
Hello, and welcome back to Cinesessed. My name is Billy Rake, and in today's discussion, I'm being joined by Jeremy Leipfinger.
Hey Billy, thanks for having me.
Today, we'll be reviewing a classic franchise, Star Wars. Now, sadly, we don't have a time for a deep discussion, even though we'd all love to do that. But we're going to try to cover as much ground as we possibly can. Starting with the original trilogy, which one is your favorite, Jeremy, and why?
I know this is everyone's answer, but I'm going to have to go with Empire Strikes Back. It's pretty much the perfect Star Wars movie for me. It has the perfect amount of humor, action. It just has all of the elements that, I've come to love growing up. And, every time I watch it, I'm always amazed by the whole plot twist at the end when Vader is revealed to be Luke's father. I wish I could have lived back in the 80s and experienced it in the theaters, because my dad, he told me a story of how he went the first night that it was in theaters, and the audience reaction was so shocking and surprising that, I just wish I could have been there for that.
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool. I would have loved to experience that, just entire theater, just all gasping and reacting at the same time. But I really enjoyed A New Hope. That might be my favorite of the original trilogy. I just liked how everything was so new, and there was so much of what's going on here, and Luke just being a young guy, just being thrown into the situation, having to learn from Ben and from Yoda, from all these people about what's going on and who he is, really. And also, not to mention the opening scene with Vader. They're one of the favorite opening scenes of, in my opinion, ever.
Yeah, it's iconic.
Yeah, seriously, he just storms in and just messes everyone up. It's iconic, I feel like.
It really is.
But now let's move on to the slightly less received prequel trilogy. There's a lot to criticize here, so let's try and keep it brief. What are your thoughts on them? Is there anything redeemable? Do you have a favorite, or is it just all bad?
It's definitely not all bad. I might go as far as to say that I actually like them. I know that episode 1 is kind of hard to get through, but after that, it's just Star Wars fun. It's as if George Lucas took, as if he knew exactly what Star Wars fans love and what they're expecting, and he kind of catered to them. We have a lot of awesome lightsaber fights, like Yoda versus Count Dooku, and Mace Windu versus the Emperor, and of course the ending with Anakin and Obi-Wan at the end of episode 3. So I know that they're very boring in parts, and they seem to drag on, but in my opinion, the lightsaber fights just more than make up for it. They're awesome.
Yeah, no, I agree about the lightsaber fights. That's when they first bring in the acrobatics to them,
yeah.
So it makes it a lot more fast paced, a lot more entertaining. But my favorite of them was Revenge of the Sith. But I do feel the other two did have redeeming parts, the fight with Darth Maul. Then you mentioned the fight with Count Dooku and Yoda in the end, and that entire scene with Anakin just slaughtering kids.
Yeah.
That moment will always stick out to me, because it's just so out of nowhere, I feel but he had a really good character arc in the prequels.
I think so too.
See him go from just a young kid to the baddest guy in the galaxy, I feel
Yeah.
But let's finally move on to the new sequel trilogy. There's been a lot of mixed reactions to it so far, I feel, especially with episode 8. How do you feel about the new trilogy so far, including Rogue One?
Rogue One is actually, in my opinion, my second favorite Star Wars movie. I really like the overall vibe it has to it. I don't think it has a similar vibe to the other Star Wars movies, because it's it's a war movie above all else. It has a really gritty tone to it, and I don't think we see that a lot in the Star Wars, the old Star Wars movies or the prequels. I especially love the scene at the end when Vader slaughters all the rebels in that hallway. I don't think we've seen any Star Wars films where Vader is fully unleashed. That's the first time we saw him at his full power. And in my opinion, The Force Awakens, I still view it as sort of a remake of A New Hope, but it's still very enjoyable. I think that seeing all the old characters again is very satisfying. And The Last Jedi, I know it's very divisive, but I'm sort of in the middle ground. There were things that I did not like, but there were things that I liked a lot. So I think it's in my Star Wars rankings, it's near the middle for me.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Especially with Last Jedi, it's kind of 50-50. Like some parts are like really good. There's like some really high highs and some low lows.
Yeah.
Like the entire Rose character, I don't know. I didn't like her. She
didn't
felt
either.
kind of like shoehorned in there. But Rogue One, I agree. It definitely felt like a war movie. It had like a totally different tone, I feel like, for the most part, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Also, like the kind of sad ending, as opposed to every other Star Wars movie, where it ended on kind of a more hopeful note. But Force Awakens, I really liked. That was my favorite so far of the new movies.
Okay.
It might be because I really like A New Hope, so I didn't mind it kind of being a remake.
Yeah.
But I like all the new characters. I like the inclusion of the old characters. I kind of wish that they did more with, what's her name? Captain Phasma.
Oh, yeah.
Because I feel like they built her up like so much, and then she was like, oh, there she goes.
Yeah, that was wasted potential, in my opinion.
Yeah, seriously. And then like they basically did it again in Last Jedi. Had her come back as like super bad character, and she's like, oh, there she goes again.
Yep.
I hope they bring her back, but I'm not really too hopeful on that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
All right, now to wrap things up with one last question, what is your favorite Star Wars movie? Like I said earlier, mine is A New Hope, but it might be tied with Empire.
Okay. I think mine, it's clear cut. It is Empire. Like I said, it's just everything that a Star Wars movie should be, in my opinion, and it's followed closely by Rogue One. But I think Empire. I don't think anything will ever top Empire, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, like Empire seems like the unanimous decision among most people, and for good reason too. It's really good. It hits like every point that it should hit. It has like the perfect tone, like perfect comedy, action, everything. And sadly, that's all the time we have for in this discussion. Thanks again to Jeremy for joining me today. Now stay tuned for some fun facts on Steven Spielberg's most popular blockbuster with Ben right after this quick break.
Are you a military veteran or the child of a veteran? The Veterans Affairs Office at Rowan University offers educational benefits to veterans and their families in the form of scholarships, financial aid, work-study programs, and more. The office is at the Academic Success Center on the 3rd floor of Savitz Hall and has walk-in and scheduled appointment times, including some evening hours. To learn more, call 856-256-4233, email veteransaffairsoffice@rowan.edu, or visit sites.rowan.edu/veterans. Serving those who have served us.
Hello, my name is Ben Lombardo, and I'm your host for some great fun facts on the most popular movies. Steven Spielberg is a household name. He has produced classics such as Close Encounters of the Third Kind, pretty weird movie, Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Jurassic Park, pretty good movie. But today, we're going to talk about the movie that launched his career, the 1975 classic Jaws. So let's get started. Fun fact number 1. Jaws was derived from Peter Benchley's novel of the same name and is based off of the capture of a 4,500-pound shark off the coast of Montauk in 1964. The man who caught the shark was the inspiration for Captain Quint in the story. It took 5 handheld harpoons, 4 barrels, and 5 hours of labor to finally capture the beast. Number 2. Spielberg was not the studio's first choice to direct. In fact, the first director was fired after a production meeting where the then director kept referring to the shark as a whale. I don't know why when the movie is based on a shark. Anyway, number 3. In the original script and storyboard, the shark was set to be featured front and center for the majority of the film. But due to technological difficulties with the 3 mechanical sharks, Spielberg was forced to find other ways to convey the shark's presence. You don't actually see the shark until an hour and 20 minutes into the actual film. To this day, people wonder if the shark didn't have technological difficulties, if the film would still have the same element of suspense. Number 4. Steven Spielberg jokingly named the shark Bruce, same name as his lawyer. Number 5. There's actually some real footage of sharks in Jaws. The scene where Hooper is in the shark cage was shot off the coast of Australia, where they were actually able to capture some real shark footage. Unfortunately, none of the sharks that came near the cage were the size of the shark in the script, so Spielberg decided to use a little person to make the shark appear larger. Number 6. Everyone took a crack at writing the USS Indianapolis speech. For those of you that don't know, the Indianapolis was a ship that was torpedoed at the end of World War II. Many soldiers were left stranded in the water and had some not so great encounters with sharks. Howard Sackler added the original draft of the speech, but it was too long. So Spielberg decided to make some adjustments, but was still not satisfied. Robert Shaw even got to contribute to his own famous lines. Well, folks, that's all the time I have for you this time. I hope you enjoyed this segment. After the break, Derek sits down with some more guests, so don't go anywhere.
At Rowan, students have the opportunity to stay active through the use of the Recreation Center. Students can relieve stress and hang out with friends in open workouts or fitness classes. The buildings are gushing with equipment that encompasses all types of workouts. The Rec Center includes a state-of-the-art gym, pool, racquetball courts, and more. Whether you like running, biking, lifting weights, or even swimming laps, there are endless options to stay active. For more information, visit the Rec Center website for facility hours and make sure to visit in person.
Hey Rowan students, looking for a fun way to get involved in campus activities? And join RTN, the Rowan Television Network. RTN offers positions in front of and behind the camera where students can experience the field of television production. They produce sports, news, and entertainment programming. All available to stream online or on campus on Channel 5.
Meetings are held on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. in King Auditorium.
For more info, head to rtnch5.com. RTN, your station, your story.
Welcome back to Cinesessed. Earlier, I was joined by Sean O'Leary, who is a Rowan University staff member. Now I'm joined by two students from Rowan University who aren't film majors, but still love a good film every once in a while. Their names are Nico Ligori and Dan Bruno. Thanks so much for joining me today, guys.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
So to start off, I want to ask you, how often would you say you watch movies?
Usually 2 or 3 times a week. Probably.
That's a lot.
4 would be the most. Yeah. Definitely.
I usually put something on, like, tell me fall asleep, but I probably see, like, one new movie at least once a week, I'd say.
Yeah, well, if you watch all those movies a week, is that literally straight on watching? Or is that maybe in the background while you're doing homework?
I'd say the majority of the time it's focused on it, and then if I want to rewatch something, then I'll usually throw it on the background, homework or studying, just for noise.
That's a lot of free time, honestly.
Yeah.
I wish I had that much free time because normally I'll put a movie on and it'll just be in the background while I'm working on stuff for, say, 5 hours straight.
Yeah.
So not fun, but I need that background noise.
Keeps you sane.
So, and Dan, what do you normally put on to help you fall asleep?
Usually movies I've obviously seen, or movies I don't care about too much. I mean, I've seen most of the Marvel movies like a bunch of times, so usually one of those I'll just like fall asleep to the action scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, do you ever watch anything, say, at the movie theater?
Yeah, definitely.
How often would you go to the movie theater, do you say?
I try to go at least once a month. Over the summer, I definitely go like probably 3 times a month to make up for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, I'd say like once every 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, I get dragged out by my friends a lot to go see them, and there's always usually something good out. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, when you guys do go, is it normally something you've been planning to see, or is it a surprise?
It's usually whatever my girlfriend wants to see. I don't usually get much of a choice, so it's usually she just points and we go. So.
Yeah. I'd say it's like 50-50. Sometimes I'll plan it out, and then it'll either be like my dad's like, "Oh, come see this with me," and I'll be like, "Yeah, okay," or I have some friends that just want to go see something on a whim. So,
are there any movies you guys see at the theaters that maybe you didn't want to see at first and were surprised that it was actually good?
Yeah, actually, I'm not too big into horror movies, so I went to see It, the new one. I haven't seen the original. I really enjoyed it, and then actually A Quiet Place as well. I heard great things, and then my girlfriend dragged me there. I wasn't looking forward to it at all. I was like worried that it was going to be scary or nightmares.
I saw both of those.
Great.
I'm not a horror guy at all.
No, me neither.
I jump when there's the smallest of jump scares in like PG-rated
previews
movies.
give me nightmares.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
But those movies, they were really well done, I will say.
Yeah, definitely.
If you could remind me of the name, saw it last year with Jeff Bridges.
The Hell or High Water.
Yes, Hell or High Water. I wasn't very interested in seeing that, but I went to go see it with you actually, and I ended up really, really enjoying it. I was really blown away by like how much I didn't want to see it. I thought it was going to be boring, and then I ended up really, really enjoying it. So.
Yeah. Sometimes there's just those smaller movies you haven't heard about that end up surprising you at the end of the day.
Expecting it.
So, what's the first movie you guys remember seeing in theaters?
For me, it would probably be March of the Penguins.
Oh, really?
Went to see that with my grandma. Very, very sad movie to go see as a kid. Unexpectedly sad.
I wouldn't call it sad. It's very informative.
It is very, very informative. Gained a lot from it, but the whole theater was crying. There was a bunch of kids crying. That's all I remember.
There's a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
It must have been an opening weekend
Plenty.
screening.
Oh yeah.
And you can't go wrong with Morgan Freeman
never.
on narration.
Never.
Have you watched it since?
I have not. However, that would probably be a good experience if I went back and revisited some old memories.
Probably won't have the same emotion you remembered as a kid. Probably
different spin.
I mean, you can watch a new documentary and then have a new emotional
And you have that dynamic
grip to it. Yeah, see?
I think the first movie I remember was definitely Spider-Man. Spider-Man 1, the Sam Raimi one.
Yeah, I was talking to O'Leary in the first segment about how I had seen Spider-Man. Yeah, do you remember anything from that screening?
I know I personally saw it like twice. The first time, I just remember.
You saw it twice in theaters?
Yes, my dad saw it at least 5 times because he loved it. He was blown away. I mean, at the time, it was like one of the best superhero movie adaptations, obviously. And I know I saw it twice. It's kind of embarrassing. The one thing that I remember was I was terrified of the Green Goblin.
Oh, I think we all are at that age.
Yeah, his yellow, like the whole scene, the yellow eyes and everything. Like, I don't know. It was really cool seeing like Spider-Man take him on though, because I was like afraid of him, but I was like just seeing the whole thing. It was crazy.
Yeah, I remember watching it at home after it came out on DVD, and we were eating at the dinner table, and the scene where he turns into the Green Goblin, I couldn't stand.
Oh, yeah.
So I would hide under the dinner table and ask my parents to tell me when it was over, and they would always play tricks on me and say it's over, and I would come up and it wasn't done yet, so they would fool me on that.
That's cool.
Do you guys prefer to normally watch your movies in the theaters, or would you prefer to watch it, say, on Netflix or on Blu-ray in the comfort of your house?
Streaming services are definitely more convenient. I think we can all agree on that. But definitely going to the theater and getting that feel. I mean, honestly, no matter the genre, it could be comedy, it could be action.
Yeah.
I feel like there's always something to gain from going to the theater out of a movie. Definitely.
Might I disagree with you about the every genre. Personally, I don't know, horror movies, I have a hard time seeing in theaters sometimes. I like to watch those in like the safety of my couch.
I don't know, you saw it though.
I did see it. I don't know, I don't consider that a horror movie. It was, I mean, it is a horror movie, but it's very different.
It's eerie, yeah.
Yeah.
Very eerie.
But I definitely prefer, I think, seeing them in theaters. There's just something about it.
Yeah, I would say that Netflix and watching things at home waiting for DVD is definitely more convenient for timing and everything. But there's something about just having a few hours to yourself is in the dark, and the big screen always seems to illuminate some of the best parts of movies, some things you don't see on a TV screen at home.
Yeah, it's very like captivating experience altogether.
Is there a specific genre you guys normally move towards or you love?
I really like comedies. I really do, especially going to the theater. Like, I think it's great, just everybody laughing together, like having a good time. But at the end of the day, I got to go with Marvel. You know, the Marvel superhero movies are just, they're the giant in the industry.
So you consider superhero movies as a genre then?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
They're their own tier, basically, at this point. I think they're pretty solidified in that top spot for me.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a difference between like regular action movies and superhero movies. They definitely have like a different like feel to them. I'm a big superhero movie guy too. But I mean, you can't deny a good like comedy, or like sometimes a romantic comedy just gets you.
I do.
Yeah, romantic comedies are underrated.
Oh yeah.
But going back to the superhero comments, I mean, I somewhat agree that they are kind of moving towards their own genre, but it's interesting that a lot of them are really sci-fi stories,
They are.
but because they're comic book characters, no one really puts 2 and 2 together anymore.
No, that acknowledgement and that like correlation usually, oftentimes it's not made, like you were saying. I mean, people don't realize.
Yeah, I mean, normally people will say like Star Wars is a sci-fi, and then you'll look at Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's a superhero movie, but it's basically Star Wars with more comedy.
Movie,
It's interesting.
Yep.
Is there a genre that maybe is your least favorite?
Definitely horror.
Probably horror movies, just because I haven't seen enough of them to really enjoy them.
Didn't really give them a chance. As I got older, I'm kind of trying to branch out now, but that's about it.
Well, one last question for you guys. What's your go-to movie and why?
For me personally, it's Kill Bill, because my grandmother actually introduced that to me, so I have such fond memories watching it with her. I know that sounds kind of weird, my grandma showing me such a violent movie, but yeah, no, I definitely, every time I see it, I can like hear her commenting on certain things in my head, so I really like watching that one.
Yeah.
I'm not a big cliche guy, but I got to go with Elf. Really just a feel-good movie. I feel like from October through February, you can find somebody playing Elf like anywhere. I mean, you see it on all over the place. I mean, even on campus, you'll see it playing sometimes. Will Ferrell's just hilarious, and it's just a really good feel-good holiday movie.
Yeah, you can honestly watch Elf
endless times.
At any time. It doesn't even have to be Christmas time.
Nope.
For me, it would probably be, it's hard for me because I see so many movies, but right now I would probably say the newest Blade Runner
Really?
I've seen like 5 times,
Yet
and
to
I
see
always have it on. And also La La Land, if you get a chance to see it, because since we were talking about romantic comedies,
Yeah.
it's a good one. So I know that Dan has seen it.
I definitely got to check that out.
So thank you so much for joining me today, guys.
Thank you for having us.
And
Yeah, thank you.
unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I'd like to thank Nico and Dan for being here, as well as Sean O'Leary for coming out for the first part of the show. For Billy Rake, Jeremy Lightfinger, Ben Lombardo, and the rest of the Cinesessed team, I'm Derek Hill. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time, cinephiles. All right, good job, guys.